and mescaline and chemicals, but also with the sacred mushrooms. And one of the points that I make on there is that whoever may be listening to this interview, it's not a question of whether or not you want to take psychoactive mushrooms. I'm not saying that everyone in the world has to take them.
Right.
I'm just saying that it's extremely important to be aware of what they are and to be aware of our right to take them if we want to.
Yeah.
And that is just as important for our survival as our right to eat the kind of food we want to eat.
Indeed. And in your series there that you mentioned, do you go into anything at all in regards to how also many of these substances, and this is how I feel this, that they've been kind of synthesized, meaning that they've taken certain, they've learned a little bit from how nature does it, so to speak, and then they've emulated this and slightly transformed it. If we talk about Sandoz, for instance, that corporation, I think actually they were one of the first corporations who were behind some of the SSRIs, so the antidepressants, and they actually learned from some of the things that Hoffman, synthesized. Do you know about that at all?
Yes, that's absolutely true. As a matter of fact, the designer drugs now that are used for depression, starting with Prozac and many others since then, Wellbutrin and Prozac, I don't know what their names are in Sweden, but they have been designed by chemists who have studied the psychopharmacology of the sacred plants. And it's a little bit of a black magic operating here, Henrik, I think.
Yeah.
Because, what they're doing is, instead of saying, well, listen, all the cures for human ills, for neurosis, for depression and everything, are already out there in nature. Why don't we just teach people to go find those plants and use them correctly? No, they're saying we want to make big business out of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's really quite perverse, but you are absolutely right. They work very closely with these traditional plant medicines. And in fact, Monsanto, for example, the great pharmaceutical company, have agents in the Amazon who collect hundreds of plants each week that have been used for thousands of years by the natives and send them back to the Monsanto laboratories. And it's really very, very sick for them to do this, because they're not only stealing from the people of that region, but they're taking something that nature already gives us and not letting us know about it in its original form, and then they're going to turn around and make it into a pill and sell it to us, It's very, very sick. It's really a kind of black magic, and it's largely responsible for how sick and crazy and addictive our society is.
Yep, you're absolutely right now. And I think, I can't remember where I picked this up, but I think pharmacopoeia or even pharmacy actually has the roots in sorcery, I think the word even. But anyway.
That's right.
Yeah, I think
so. That's right, it does.
I mean, they don't pick their words for no reason, so.
It is kind of a black magical battle that we're having here on Earth, and I'm starting to write about this now on a new section that I've created on Metahistory.org called Right Action. Mm-hmm. And I think that as we come toward this 2012 date, it will become more clear, and we're getting very, very close, It's only like 4 years away.
Right.
I think it will become clear that we're kind of like on a planet that is in the grip of black magic, of black magicians. And you can think of some of these people who are intentionally deceiving the world and putting these programs like the Codex Alimentarius into action. It is a kind of a black magic, and so my suggestion would be that we would all have to become, in a sense, magicians in order to fight their magic with our magic.
Yeah.
And I can actually see it developing in that way,
Very interesting, and worth mentioning here again, because you popped the M word, Monsanto, right there, and it's
right.
It's worth mentioning also that, I mean, they are behind the Terminator seed technology, and as you say, they go around, they take various seeds with big genetic diversity from around the globe. We can even look at what's going on with the global seed vault up in Svalbard right now. I mean, what the heck is that all about? They're consciously saving, all of these different seeds with genetic diversity. I mean, even if this is not a big conspiracy behind it, it still kind of sends out the message that, okay, wait a minute here, something is going on. We better protect, the original seeds here and put them away in case something happens. Because in a way, if Monsanto's technology, become, more and more widely available, more corporations adopt their kind of methodology, what we could end up here is basically that we end up with genetically modified plants that actually are basically exterminating all the other, plants in their neighborhood and so forth. This has happened with farmers like Percy Schmeiser, for instance. He got the sense of that.
That's right.
How I think it was canola or something, or may have been corn. I'm not sure. That actually basically took over all of his field, and in the end he had to pay out to Monsanto because they said, you are using our copyrighted plant right now, so you need to pay us, the interest for that or whatever. And
that's right.
And it's insane, in the end of the day.
It's really insane. It's a total control system.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'd like to try to link this problem. I mean, more and more people are becoming aware of this because we've heard about this arc of seeds, and we hear more and more about Monsanto and these genetically modified plants each day. And I'd like to try to make a link here in the listener's mind between these developments and something that happened many thousands of years ago when the religion was founded as such. Remember that I said that Wasson and the scholars around him were quite convinced that the story of the Garden of Eden was about the forbidding of psychoactive plants. The taboo on psychoactive plants began a long time ago in order to control the community. Because, see, religion controls people by beliefs and by rituals, whereas the ingestion of these psychoactive plants actually liberates people.
Yeah.
It liberates their minds, it refreshes and regenerates them, it heals them, and it gives them, each individual, the opportunity to experience the planet and the divinity of the world we live in our own individual way. And once you have experienced that divinity, once you have had an illumination and a visionary experience with these plants, no one can ever take that away from you, and no one can ever fool you with any kind of religious doctrines or beliefs.
Yeah.
So I think it's clear that in order for religion to be created as a control system, a social control system, access to these psychoactive plants had to be forbidden. I think that's fairly easy to understand. Am I making that clear?
I definitely follow you there, and I mean, what is interesting here is also, again, and we haven't really spent any time on this, so maybe we can dive into it. The fact that what is happening is that we're tapping into something when we access these plants or mushrooms or whatever we want to talk about here. That the question that arises is are we tapping into parts of our own unconscious, if you will, because of the fact that these plants are they have these active psychoactive substances, meaning that we're actually accessing something within ourselves, or is there really something going on more beyond that, meaning that there actually is a communication between ourselves and something else, or is this simply actually an interface between ourselves and Gaia, or Mother Earth, as you said? What do you think about that, John?
I strongly argue, as you know, all through my site, that these plants are not merely chemicals that enter our mind and allow us to access our own subconscious or unconscious. Not at all. We are actually communicating with another species when we ingest these plants. And these sacred medicine plants, such as peyote, ayahuasca, the psilocybin mushroom, iboga, they all have specific properties. Why? Because they are all specific entities. They are all teachers. They're called plant teachers, plant allies. And there are 2 levels, or 3 levels, I would say, of this visionary experience with plants. And I'm speaking now not only from my own personal experience, but from what I have read of others. The first level is you ingest, say, a Stropharia cubensis mushroom, and that mushroom, the chemistry of that mushroom changes your neural system, and you first learn to the mushroom itself. The mushroom itself shows you its particular knowledge. Just like Mescalito in the Tales of Don Juan and Castaneda, the mescal plant, the cactus plant, peyote shows its particular knowledge to those who ingest it. That's the first level. The second level is that the plant entity is an intermediary and takes you to the Gaian intelligence. So at the second stage, the visionary plant experience goes right into the intelligence of the entire planet itself. You're hooked into the planetary mind itself. And Terence, of course, wrote very beautifully about this. The third level, then, is once you become in contact with the planetary mind, or Gaia, well, that Gaia is a divine planetary entity. She's a superorganism, and she herself is in touch with the entire cosmos. That is to say, the sun, the moon, the stars, and other planets.
Right.
So the third step of the visionary experience would be to take you through the Gaian intelligence into the entire intelligence of the cosmos, of the galaxy. And those three levels are very real. They can be distinguished, and you can journey through those levels very consciously and reach each level and communicate and learn different things at each level. So this is and always has been the primary religious experience of humanity. Now, what I would like to point out is something that perhaps we haven't touched on yet in this conversation. So I consider it to be extremely important in facing the danger of our time. If we can accept that some people want to control this experience, they want to forbid it to the community, because that's what we are, we're the community of people living on Earth, the human community. They want to forbid it to the human community so that they can control and manipulate the human community for their own purposes, okay?
Right.
Now, you mentioned earlier something that Professor Carl Ruck has also proposed. He proposed that the Judeo-Christian priesthood, for example, who forbade the psychoactive plant, actually kept it for their own use.
Right.
And this is a theory that has been going around a bit now, and lately there's been a lot of discussion around this guy, Benny Shannon, who's been saying, oh yes, well, even Moses, who produced the Ten Commandments and so forth, well, he was secretly using some kind of psychoactive plant and so forth. So there is a theory, there is a scenario that says, listen very closely because this is extremely important, that those who are forbidding the psychoactive plants to others are actually using it themselves. Okay? Now I want to say very clearly why I believe that scenario is wrong. I believe that scenario is completely wrong, and I believe that there's a flaw in that scenario. And I'll tell you simply why I reject that scenario. Because the priesthood who forbids this psychoactive vision to the human community are themselves afraid of that vision. They are not forbidding it to others and then hoarding it and keeping it to themselves. They are actually afraid of it. And they are afraid of others having it, and they are afraid of also having it themselves. So Carl Ruck's theory that the church hierarchy, for instance, of the Catholic Church has always used Amanita muscaria mushroom in a secret ceremony behind the scenes of the Vatican, whatever. I can't buy that.
Right.
Because my understanding, and this is so important, what I want to say now, is that fear of nature is what is driving these black magicians. They are afraid of nature. The fear of nature is what is driving the people of Monsanto to create archontic simulations of nature.
You're right.
And you know, Henrik, we've talked about the subject of the Melchizedek complex.
Yeah.
It came up in another conversation we had, and I think it's come up in several of your investigations, that the idea of